All right, welcome, Benjamin. I got Benjamin Mendoza here. He's 29 from Long Beach, California. Currently, he's stationed in Colorado Springs, Colorado. He has a wife and two kids. Um, been in the Army for 11 years. You're a staff sergeant now, E6.
Yes.
You are a 11 Charlie, which is a mortarman, and you did some time as a recruiter. I want to talk to you about that for sure. We met in Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington State. Um, Pretty sure that was your first duty station. I was
It
probably
was,
your
yeah.
yeah, I was your first platoon sergeant.
First time.
Yeah, sorry about that. You've also gone to Fort Irwin. You were stationed at Fort Irwin. You're at Carson now. You've done peacekeeping missions in the Philippines, Indonesia, and then you're going to be going to Inherent Resolve, which for those people that don't know, Inherent Resolve is the mission title for what we're doing in Iraq and Syria right now. It's to destroy, degrade ISIS or any other upstarts out there that try to cause trouble. Um, so yeah, I kind of wanted to start with this, man. Um, I certainly remember you, but I remember you as being a really solid, good soldier that didn't cause me any problems. And the unfortunate part about being a platoon sergeant, especially there at Joint Base Lewis McChord, was I spent 90% of my time with 10% of the soldiers. I remember I used to say that a lot. Like I had guys there that were trouble, and I spent a lot of time chaptering guys out, a lot of time doing disciplinary stuff, a lot of time just focused on just a few guys in the platoon. And guys like I went into the platoon sergeant gig thinking I'm going to be able to spend maximum time with these guys and train them and get them ready for war. Luckily, I had great NCOs that did that because I
Hmm.
didn't have time to do it, and it was kind of disappointing. I kind of expected being a platoon sergeant would be different. I thought I'd be able to train guys more, but as it was, I was doing way more administrative stuff, way more disciplined stuff, and unfortunately, guys like you, my solid soldiers, I never really got a chance to know you. Um, so that's what we're going to do today. So your friends call you Ben. I called you Mendoza, but what do your friends call you?
Benji mostly.
Benji?
Yeah. I
Okay.
go by Benji.
All right, Benji. Um, so talk to me about growing up in California. What was that like? What was your childhood like, man?
So born and raised in Long Beach, California. I actually never left the state until I joined the army. Um, I grew up with two siblings. I was the middle child of two siblings, one older, one younger. Um, uh, yeah, I kind of stuck around in Long Beach. In my household, I wasn't very close to my family. I would say none of my family members. I never grew up with a grandmother or grandfather. The grandmother that I did know and grew up with, and the grandfather I did grow up with, I couldn't speak to. My parents didn't teach me Spanish.
Oh,
Yeah, I was an English speaker in the house. Their reason for it was the bilingual family members didn't go to college, and so their goal was to ensure that we tried to go to college. So they had some, you know, there was a benefit for them for us just speaking English. In my sister case, my brother's case, they ended up going to college, so maybe it worked. Um, but I did grow up in a household that we weren't very close. My family members, I mean, my brother, he was a few years older than me. We were probably as close as we could have been. I think the closest person I was um, with was my cousin, my first cousin on my mom's side. But it was weird because we grew up around so many family members. I think my grandfather had bought houses or at least put down payments on houses for all his kids. So I grew up with 51st cousins that lived generally close, but I was so sheltered by my parents, which kind of put some distance between us. My father, he drank a lot. He, if he was very close. adamant on being around for his mom, my grandmother. She had a stroke when I was really young, and so she's been kind of unable to walk, paralyzed basically from the waist down. And so he's been the one son that took care of my grandmother growing up, and he would spend hours a day. I mean, he still does to this day, spend hours a day at my grandmother's house taking care of her. So my relationship with my father, not really as close as I would have hoped it to be. And when he was at home, he was drinking a lot. I kind of got my habits from him. um, yeah, I got in a lot of fights at school. Introduced to drugs. I mean, Long Beach was not as nice of neighborhoods out there as one would assume. It was closer to North Long Beach, Compton side. So we introduced to a lot of bad things growing up, as a lot of fights, a lot of suspensions and moving of schools. My brother, he had it different though. I mean, he was already in the magnet program, so he was going to schools outside of the area. So I
What's
just
what's
didn't love
what's
the
the
what
what's the magnet program?
magnet program is for higher excelling students. But those programs, the really good programs, were outside of the area, at different schools. So I think he was exposed to a lot more different things than I was. So my grades were always pretty low. I think I had potential and I had drive and I wanted to succeed in life. I mean, I had that drive when I was young, and it carried on to when I was older. But there was one thing, and I brought it up. Well, it's one of the things I plan on bringing up. But I did notice that I did struggle with concentrating and trying not to sit still in class, not be such an interruption. I wasn't a bad kid, so to speak. I did get in fights, and that was because that was around the people. There was people that disliked me, and that's kind of what we did. You know,
Yeah.
um, but I did notice, I was struggling with things, and then that was a big reason why I was struggling in school. So I didn't go to college, or I did, but for a semester, I went to community college in Compton. And after that semester of struggling still in school, I went ahead and then joined the army.
Wow, man. Uh, when you were down there in Long Beach, were you involved in gangs at all or any of that? Was that around you?
It was around me. It was all over the place. I'd like to say that I wasn't a part of them. I was involved with them. I hung around with them. Um, I did school with them, but I wasn't a part of any gangs. I would say.
Yeah.
But the environment was there. My family was a part of them. And by default, I would hang out with them. But I don't think anyone ever really forced me into it, though. So it was a blessing, I'd say, looking back at it, because who knows where I would have been if I had. So
Yeah, exactly. Uh, something else that you mentioned, the speaking English in the household. It's I just had a guy on here a couple of weeks ago that he's Hispanic, and they were bilingual in the house, but they insisted on him focusing on English. And I it's interesting that I'm hearing the same thing from you. It's like your family knew that if you're going to succeed in this country,
mhm.
you got to master English, and you got to assimilate into American society. Which it's I actually feel worse for you because you've got all of these family members that you're not able to communicate with. That's crazy. I'd never thought of it in terms like that. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, two of my grandparents I could never speak to, and one of them I don't know. He's in Texas somewhere, and then the other one died before I was born. So yeah, it's been rough.
Wow. Huh. So what you did the semester in college, And had you thought about the Army before? What was the mental shift that made you go military?
I've always wanted to be a Marine when I was younger. I had a girlfriend when I was in middle school, and her brother was a Marine. The idea of being in the military and serving in my head, I saw one of your questions on one of the questionnaires, something about heroes, and I can't really pinpoint, a person, a specific person, that I could call like a hero that I considered a hero growing up. However, you know, the it was more like a group, right? Group of people. Military has, I've always seen them as a bit of a heroes to me. Um, and I wanted to be a part of that. When I was young, I knew that. I knew that our country was in other countries, and we were, how do you say, stationed
All
in
over.
the idea, yeah, all over the place, and the idea that there's no other countries like that's just residing in the United States, like that to me there was a reason for that, and I've always knew that the U.S. military had the best military, and that's I wanted to be a part of that. So
Yeah, hands down,
hmm
the the biggest, baddest military since the Roman Empire. Hands
exactly,
And if there ever comes a point where there's foreign militaries on our soil, we fucked up. Something
yeah,
went something
exactly.
went bad. Wow.
I still find that weird, that like, oh, we're over there, but they're not over here. But
Yeah, there's a reason. We like to
yeah,
keep that crap in their backyard, not ours.
exactly.
Um, so you're not a Marine.
No,
What was what was that shit?
no, I tried to join the Marines, and they denied me due to medical background and history,
Oh,
and yeah, but the Army gave me some waivers, so I was allowed in.
yeah, Army, we'll take anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I, I used to, so you recruited, which,
So it's I want to correct you there though. I've never recruited.
why
I
does this
never
say you sent me saying you were
career
79 Ring?
counselor. 79 Sierra.
They can do that? You can skip recruiting and go straight to what?
Yes. Yeah. So
Explain that.
so so I was in 11 Charlie. I'm no longer in 11 Charlie.
What?
It'll be my secondary MOS. I mean, until I get fired. But 79 Sierra is its own MOS, and it's you do not have to go recruiting to become a 79 Sierra.
Really?
Yeah, career counselor is a packet MOS that requires, I mean, a lot of requires you to have been a retention NCO and to submit a packet and an endorsement by a command career counselor, who's usually a sergeant major at the division level or post level. Um, and they endorse your packet and you become a career counselor. But it's retention, no recruiting whatsoever.
So, but you're doing it on base and you're part of a unit, or are you part of recruiting command?
Nope, not recruiting. No, I'm a part of the unit itself.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the person you go through,
Mhm.
anybody that reenlists has to go through that career counselor. You probably went through that career counselor.
Yeah, I did, but I didn't realize they were 79 Sierras. I thought they were just on an additional duty.
And people, yeah, and I've done that too. If the only people that can hold the seat and do the job of a career counselor are people who are approved to be a career counselor. So, well, in I think like 2023, I was approved to be a career counselor, but I wasn't. I didn't go to the schoolhouse yet. I didn't get my badge yet. So I sat in the seat for over a year, just doing it as an 11 Charlie.
Wow.
And then after I went to the schoolhouse, I transferred over to being a 79 Sierra, changed the MOS.
I think that's probably a smart move.
Yeah, I think so too.
Good. So now when you go to Iraq, you're still going to pull that duty as retention NCO. That's what you're going to do
That's
there?
correct. Yeah.
Okay, good. Good.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're a stud mortar guy, but man, I don't know. It's in today's fight, it's probably best to be not on a gun system today's with drones and everything else.
Exactly. Counter battery. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a thing of the past. I think mortars are going to be obsolete, sooner or later.
I don't know. I mean, I watched the Russia Ukraine fight a lot, probably more than I should. I
Mhm.
pay pretty close attention to it and how tactics are changing and everything else. For one, in 2014, when our platoon, um, we would have had a hard time in that fight right now. You guys would have been the heroes for sure because mortars are still kicking a lot of ass.
Mhm.
I think if they break down the casualties, um, from what I've seen from Russia and Ukraine, both sides, the number one killer is drones, but the number two killer is indirect fire, artillery, mortars, and then like a distant third is direct action gunfights. So mortars they're carrying the fight over there. There's no doubt about it. And you guys were some badasses. When I come out to watch you guys train, man, you guys,
Yeah.
I had, thank God I had Sergeant Hussey to oversee you guys because he was a stud. I don't know. I hope you like him. I thought he was
No,
amazing.
I loved him. Let's see, yeah. We had Vega, Hussey. Rao
Bang.
was a tinker, but he liked to involve himself a little bit.
Rao was a
Um, and then we had Mara and yeah, I think that was it. Mara, Vega. Oh, and Looney.
Looney. Okay, I didn't know if you remembered Looney or not. I didn't
Yeah.
know if he was still there. Yeah, unfortunately, he was one of those 10% that I was talking about, and it's a fucking shame because Looney was a stud. He
Yeah, he
was,
had potential. Mhm.
oh my God, did he have potential? Guy could have been sergeant major. He
Mhm.
was that good. I mean, played college football. The guy was, but he could never let go of that street life. You
Mhm.
know, gang banging, hustling. He could never move away from that, and it caught up to him. I tried to get him. I talked to him a couple years ago, and he wanted to get back in the army, and he needed some letters. I wrote him a letter, and then I reached out to the commander and the first sergeant, and they ghosted me. They never responded.
This was a
A
couple months ago?
couple years ago,
Oh, years, okay. Okay.
yeah, not that long ago, he was like, I fucked up. I want to get back in the army, and the army was doing great things for him, but in his off time, he was still acting like he was back in St. Louis
Mhm.
on the street. You know, and yeah, you weren't out there that night, were you? That night
No.
that he shot at that dude,
No, he got stabbed or something.
stabbed. Yeah, he got
Yeah,
stabbed
yeah.
times.
No, I wasn't out there, no, but I did hang out with him. Never in any crazy way. We went to church together.
Did you
And
really?
I knew he yeah, I knew he was going through things, and I knew the type of background he was a part of, and I want to be a part of, like, a healthy background for him. And
Yeah,
so, I was just obviously I was just a private, but, I wanted to be a part of something or a positive side of him. And so,
yeah,
I went to church with him, and I would hang out with him at the house with his girlfriend, and we would talk and just, and I didn't think he was on house arrest too at one point. So, I was just keeping him company. but, but no, yeah, he couldn't let it go. I mean, even as he got out, you could still see that, he means well and he wants to do
yeah.
good things with his life. He started a landscaping business, and
Good.
and he was rapping a little bit, and you know, I was keeping up with him, but it's just everything follows him, like gravitates to him. So
Yeah, yeah. There are some people that are just a magnet for bullshit, and unfortunately,
Mhm.
he was one of them. I think he also picked up a gig in the civilian sector, working on those giant wind farms. Those
Oh wow,
like
yeah,
like he was climbing up and servicing
the
those things.
turbines.
Yeah,
Or- Oh, he well
make
he also did nails and cut hair.
cutting hair I could see, but doing nails.
Yeah, he did nails. Yep. He was just trying to find a niche, get away from the shit he was into. But yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know where he's at now. He dropped off the radar. I know he's been
yeah,
arrested a couple times, and uh, poor dude.
yeah. I know. It's so much fucking potential, so much potential in that guy. The whole platoon was like that. I was so blessed with you guys. I mean, everybody in that platoon was a stud in their own right.
Hmm.
Um, we, I used to get kudos constantly, and it was nothing that I did because I was too busy doing fucking paperwork. It was you guys. But you know, the battalion commander, the sergeant major, the first sergeant commander, they left me alone because we got shit done, and we were always top dog in everything we did. We'd smash those infantry platoons, you know. So that was a good time. It was a good time, but also you'd mentioned something about like your father drinking. Um, for me, in that time period, uh, as a platoon sergeant there, I was drinking. I don't know if you knew or not, but I was drinking like there was no tomorrow. But I used to come in before PT. Prior to coming in, I would take a hot soapy shower so I didn't
Mhm.
smell like yesterday's vodka. And I'd be hungover until 3, 4 in the afternoon. I had a little bottle in my freaking top drawer there in the office, and I was hitting it a lot. And I was about a year after I left that platoon, I went to rehab. Um,
No.
yeah. So
Did you
now
retire out of there?
I retired the next duty station after that. I went
Okay. So you
Fort
went to
Lewis.
ASAP or what was it called back in the day?
Was it called ASAP? I think it was
No,
Army
it's ASAP
C.
now. It used to be something else.
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe it was ASAP. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Army Substance Abuse Program. Yeah, I
Mhm.
went there, turned myself in, and they brought my chain of command in, and they're like, "Okay, well, whatever we got to do." And they sent me to a rehab in Connecticut. And I spent 30 days there in a bougie place, man. It was fucking nice. It was real nice, and it was all Army guys or military. It was all military, and changed my life, man. It really did. So, what's going on with you? I mean, I know you mentioned a little bit in the paperwork you sent me back, and you mentioned your father was a drinker. You have your own issues with it, or
Yeah. So I think it started for me recreationally.
sure,
I thought it more of sport, and I think over time that affected me. I picked up drinking. I think due to stress. Um, but over time, I think in the last like 8 years or so, I wanted to. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed trying new wines and new whiskeys and I had a bar. I had two bars in my house. I had a bar that was downstairs. I had a dual tap kegerator, and I enjoyed the sport. And to me, like I could never give it up because I had all this stuff.
yeah,
And it's nice. And I'm not a violent drink. I'm not belligerent. I'd like to think I'm pretty responsible when I drink. Um, and but I noticed it picked up even more and more and more, and every time I wanted to quit or I wanted to just cool off a little bit, and I noticed that I couldn't. Um, I think you know I would find excuses to drink. Um, I started streaming probably like 5 years ago. It was like video game streaming,
okay,
um, and I was getting paid to take shots, and to get plastered on stream. And to me, it was part of the job. My wife was like, "You're always drunk, when you get off these streams."
they
I'm
want
like,
me to.
"Well, they want me to drink. They're paying me for it. Like what?" That responsible side was still like, "Yeah, you're doing this, for your job, for your second job, your hustle, and well, not responsible, but the fun side of me was like, you're doing it for a job, you're doing it for your hustle." And I stopped streaming, or I slowed the streaming down because of it, and I started podcasting. But the whole podcast was centered around drinking and talking, and I had a crew, and it was a nice little setup. I had a crew, and we came in. I'm not doing that anymore, by the way, but we came in. We would sit down. We'd introduce a drink, and we drink. We'd sip on it the entire show, and we talk and we bullshit. We had a phone line. We'd take callers. We did little main events. Yeah, it was fun. But even then, that got old. People were getting too drunk on stream, and it was ridiculous. So I started DJing. I picked up DJing. It was always something I was interested in. Um, and I'd say it got even worse. Because now I'm at these bars, I'm at these clubs, I'm at these weddings, and I'm drinking nonstop, like drink. Um, and that's when I decided, maybe it's time that I get checked out and I figure things out. So, and we can get into that a little more if you'd like, but
Well,
um,
yeah, we're there now, so I mean,
oh
we
yeah,
can come.
yes,
I want to go back to the DJ stuff though, but
yeah.
yes,
I figure we
uh,
can flip flop,
yeah,
but no. So when I did the DJing and I realized I was drinking too much, I went ahead and enrolled myself in Sud C. Oh, that's what it's called now, Sud C. Yeah,
Sudsea. That's an
yeah,
interesting name.
yeah. So I enrolled in Sud C. But even then, that there, I felt like it was a waste of my time. I feel like I had the power to stop in me the entire time. I was
Mhm.
seeing this doctor who would spend the entire session just talking about himself. Old man in a wheelchair. He spent the entire time talking about himself, and
That had to be
I was
helpful.
like, this is not going anywhere. And
Yeah.
so, I made the conscious decision to stop, figure my life out, while I was doing, but I didn't want to quit DJing. So while I was doing the events, I was drinking non-alcoholic beers, and
Mm,
I still do, to
okay.
get the effect and to feel, part
Like
of
you're
the
part.
goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so I still do. I drink non-alcoholic beers when I'm at these events. I think the last alcoholic beverage I had was on my 10-year anniversary a couple months ago. So there,
Well,
yeah.
that's good. That's good. I mean, some of us have the alcoholic bug. Some of
Mhm,
us don't. If you are abusing it, you recognize it, and you back off, and that works for you, fucking awesome. Um, I'll throw out right now that if you get to a point where you really can't fucking stop, you just can't stop. Sud C, ASAP, ADAP, whatever the hell they're calling it today. Yeah, they're not fucking helpful. They're the one thing that I've found that truly works and truly sticks is a 12-step recovery program like
mhm,
Alcoholics Anonymous, where you're around people just fucking like you. Um, and I also add this. I thought for a long time, everything that you're talking about, like being up there as a DJ, not having a beer in your hand, just kind of, it doesn't feel right.
mhm,
Uh, I, I grew up in my early years in a band, and being in a band, that was what you did. You drank. We drank before to kind of calm our nerves down and get ourselves ready to go, and then we drank through the whole set, and then we got smashed after the set. And since I retired, I was like, I want to start playing guitar again. I want to start doing this stuff again. And for a long time I couldn't, because I was like, I don't want to be back in the bar scene. I don't want to be putting myself in a position where I'm going to want to drink. Um, but now that I've got some time, a couple of years now, um, I've played in bars, and it's it's not a big deal now. Uh, I'm with guys that aren't all drinkers. Some of them are, not all of them are though, and that helps. I think you'll find it's a little harder. Not going to lie, man. When you're 29, it's harder to find a group of people that aren't drinking, but
mhm.
they exist. They're there. But it does get easier, and I think you'll also notice, like I've noticed, like going to concerts and shit. I used to think everybody there was getting smashed, and now I'll go and I'll look around the crowd and notice that only about a third of the people there are really getting fucked up. Everybody else is pretty much there to see the concert, and
Having
it's
a good
like, yeah, I never noticed that before.
time.
So yeah. So what about you mentioned a little bit about ADHD too, having a hard time sitting still in school. I was kind of like that myself. So what's that like for you today?
Um, Pretty much the root of all my problems, I think.
Mm.
Um, and I didn't notice it, and I didn't put it all together until last year. I mean, there was a lot of factors when I was at my last duty station. So JBLM was pretty smooth, I'd say. But I've only been to 3 duty stations. I only just got here, so it tells you how
Car-
long
Carson's great, man. Are you in
yeah,
fourth ID or
I am. Yeah, for cab, the aviation brigade.
awesome?
That's
Yeah, I
fourth
love.
ID.
I was going to retire there. I love that place. I
Hmm.
don't know what it's like today, but all right, keep going.
Well, my last duty station, I was there for 8 years, so NTC. That's wild, isn't it? Yeah,
How the hell did you get stuck there for that long?
it was all the all the changes in MOS or my changes in MOS, all the schools I had lined up. It never made sense to leave. I got there as a specialist,
Uh-huh.
and I pretty much promoted to E5. Upon the first year there, got sent to BLC. I got sent to ALC and then air assault. They sent me to MLOC. They sent me to Pathfinder, the expert infantryman. So there was no
Damn.
time. There was no time where I didn't have something lined up that didn't make me go, "Oh, I need to stay here a little longer." And so with that came a lot of headaches too. Continuous rotations. I did 48 rotations while I was there. 48 NTC rotations.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was wild.
It's
Um,
got to be different though on the op force side.
It is. It's a whole lot different on the op force side, but it can get. I think it could wear you out. It could wear you
Oh,
out really fast. Your body really fast. Sleeping on the ground 10 days every month. It's only 10 days. It's not like 2 weeks. Like the RTU come in for 2 weeks.
right.
But then it was like clockwork. It did feel fast. Like I could pinpoint my first rotation there and tell you exactly what happened on that first rotation and every rotation after that, because it was just so quick. You're on your 3 day, you're on your 4 day, you're in the box for 10 days, you recover, you get ready to go back out, and then we did that for
Gotcha.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wow.
But everything was lined up in a way where it forced me to stabilize. It forced me to when I did my reclass, I had to delete my orders to Hawaii. I had orders to Hawaii as an infantryman. Um, Forced me to delete my orders to Hawaii, and then I had a probationary period even after I reclassed. They keep you on probation to see if you earn the badge, like if you truly can handle the job. And after that 1 year probation, you finally start getting orders, and that's where I got orders to Carson. So it was a long journey at Irwin, but that
Wow.
that that's where I know it really wasn't until I started to pursue the reclass did I notice how bad the ADHD had me. And I had problems in the past. Let's just say counseling soldiers, for instance. I always hated counseling soldiers, and I only say this because um it I I've always gotten heat for it, being as close to soldiers as possible, but that was always important to me,
Yeah, me too.
is getting to know these soldiers on a personal level, and inviting them over for barbecues. And to me that wasn't fraternizing, because I invited everybody. I said, hey, anybody and everybody, like, come on over. We'll have a barbecue, we'll talk, we'll hang out, we'll get to know each other. And that was always important to me. And so the counseling for me was never that big of a deal. If I knew you knew your soldiers, and even as a staff sergeant, I was like, have you done your counseling? Why haven't you done it? Like, do it. Do the check the block thing, but do you actually know your soldiers? Are you getting to know your soldiers? What are you doing? And I still do that even as a career counselor. I sit down as a career counselor. I get to know every soldier in the formation, the entire battalion. And there's not. I have to keep a tracker. For the division. And it says this person wants this person wants that. But you can tell me, you can give me a name, and I'll tell you exactly, from A to B, like what this soldier wants and what their needs and desires are.
Yeah.
But
That's real leadership right there. That's
mhm.
real.
But when I became that full-time retention NCO as an 11 Charlie, like I told you, before I actually put on the badge and went to the schoolhouse, and I was sitting in the seat doing the career counselor duties, that's when I really started to realize just how bad and how detrimental my ADHD was. I was having trouble concentrating on little things. I would start task A, and halfway through that task, I'd work on task B and C. And by the end of the day, I'm on task E and I have completed nothing, absolutely
Right.
nothing. I've gotten, little bits of everything done, but one full task I didn't complete,
Yeah.
and it hurt. It forced me to stay later at work. It forced me to work on the weekends, all my weekends, because I didn't want to fail. It was, I wanted the reclass. I wanted to become a career counselor, but I was having trouble staying organized. My lists, I would have a list of like 20 things to do, and I would do like two, and then there would be a list of like 25 things to do, and it included half the stuff that was on the first list and even more stuff from,
Yeah.
and it really started to bug me. And ultimately that led to like a lot of anxiety, led to depression, it led to more drinking. So I don't think I drank more in my life, and than I did in that period, of me being the transition from 11 Charlie to career counselor. I mean, it didn't require much of you to get on a gun and put in some data, and even as FDC, I sat down and was focused, and I was scared. I had that weight on my shoulder of trying, getting my data proper and sending proper data to the gun line, so that it was a little easier. I don't think anything was ever that hard as an infantryman or as an 11 Charlie, but
Right.
being responsible for 500 soldiers' careers, and the difference between a soldier having to go in def and not having to go in def and having options is me doing my job, or a soldier getting out in a few months and making the wrong decision, and me sitting down with them and going over options. It's a lot more weight on my shoulders as a career counselor than there ever was as
Right.
a as an infantryman.
Yeah. So folks listen to this that aren't military at all. But basically, so in my synopsis, a retention NCO is a guy in the unit that, when we have a contract, a 4-year contract, a 6-year contract, or whatever, eventually that's going to run out. And, that's when a guy in the military has to make a decision. Am I going to get out or am I going to stay in? The retention NCO is the guy or gal that comes down and talks to those folks and shows them what their options are if they want to stay in. And they're really now I know there's been retention issues in the military after I got out, like during the Biden years. I can remember seeing a lot of stuff on the news that the military wasn't making their mission. I think that was just recruiting command in general. But a part of that mission overall is, the military doesn't want just new guys. They want experienced guys to stay in. They don't want them to get out. Um, so that's where you come in. Like you're kind of like a headhunter for the guys that are already in the military and trying to incentivize them to
Correct.
stay in.
Yep.
And the pressure of that is immense because I mean that was something that when I had to go to those battalion briefs as a platoon sergeant, that was a huge block of the briefing was where are we at with retention? And that was something that the battalion commander always beat up on. He's like, talk to your guys, get them to reenlist, talk to them about this, talk to them about that. Um, and so that was always a big deal. So I can see where that pressure is on you as a retention NCO.
Yep. Yeah. And so when I realized I was having these problems, like I said, it was one of the worst times of my life, that transition from being a Chuck. And then mind you, the loneliness that comes with leaving your platoon,
Yeah.
and then being, you're with the platoon for 10 years. I was 10 years as an 11 Charlie. And then
Mm-hmm.
suddenly I got nobody, and I'm by myself in an office struggling, to learn a new job and not get fired. And so, you know, the drinking got worse. I finally, s- you know, seeked help through SUDC, and none of that really helped, the SUDC stuff. But I was also referred to therapy and what is he, psychiatrist.
Uh-huh.
And so that's when they tackled the ADHD side of things,
Good.
and how that was the root of everything else. And so when we started attacking that and discussing everything, why that was causing anxiety, why that was leading to the drinking and depression, and the drinking relaxed the nerves, would help the anxiety out. Depression came from the drinking, and so on and so forth. We started to work on solutions, medication solutions, and
Good.
getting better. So
Good.
it
I'm glad. How do you feel today?
it the weirdest thing is that even then I didn't feel like the solutions were working. Not in my last duty station, but moving over here, I think the change. I also needed change because now that I've come here, I can't. I'm more organized than I've ever been in my life. Like I'm
Wow.
staying on top of tasks. So I think it was a restart. I needed a reset, and I think that helped a lot coming over here to this new duty station. So
That's good. I just a couple of years ago, I for the first time in my life, because I swore against this shit. I'll drink myself to death and I'll medicate myself with alcohol. But when somebody says, "Hey, you probably need a pill for your PTSD, anxiety," I was even diagnosed with mild ADHD, which was like, "Oh yeah, that checks out. I believe that." But I take 50 milligrams of this daggone med every day, and my brain has quieted down, and I feel like I can stay on task a lot better than I used to. I was the same way as you, bro. I I'd come in there and sit down that desk there at Fort Lewis and write out all the shit that I had to accomplish, and I just start on each of them at the same time instead of just doing one
one at a
completely through and then going on to the next. And it drove me absolutely insane. I was like, I always felt overwhelmed. I always felt like I was behind, you know? And that's no way to live, bro. That's no.
no, no, it's been rough. Nah,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that Fort Carson at least is working out better for you now. So when you were in Fort Irwin, which is the National Training Center, you're 2 hours from home. Were you going home much?
I did for the first 4 years. I would spend my 3 days and 4 days in LA to see my family. Every now and then, occasionally, I go down to Vegas. Those were the
Yeah,
two locations in the area that everyone
right.
went to go have a good time or spend time with family.
Yeah, like 2 hours to each one. 2 hours to LA,
Exactly.
two
Yep.
hours to Las Vegas. Yeah.
hmm
Wow.
Yes. It was Fordham was probably the best and worst thing for me. Yeah, career progression. I think it was perfect for me, and it could be a career killer or a career maker. People, lose their wives. They go on a downhill slope. They don't progress at all. I think I realized early on when I got there as a specialist that no one cared. No one cared enough. Um, JBLM, everybody was competing for the top spot. Everyone wanted a
Yeah.
300 PT score. Everybody wanted to be a stud.
Yeah. It was
Um,
very
it was
competitive
competitive.
in a good way.
Yeah, and it's good because the whole organization's about it, and everybody's you know fitting the part of a soldier.
Yeah.
But I realized early on coming to Irwin that if I was the one that went the extra mile, then I would be the one to go to the schools and succeed there. And so that's what I did. I took everything serious, every bit of the training seriously, and I tried my very best. And
You went
going,
to a lot of schools while you were there. I mean, you pretty much knocked out every school that you're going to need
mhm,
till retirement. You got
yeah,
them all done.
except airborne. I want airborne so bad. I've
Will they
tried.
send, as a retention? Will they send you airborne?
Uh, I've seen some career counselors go airborne. Pathfinder was the hard one. That was the hard one to get, and I was threatened. I was told I was the first and the last career counselor to go through.
How
um,
what was that school like, Pathfinder? I don't know much about the job or what the schooling is. So tell me about that.
so the Pathfinder school itself is it's a harder air assault in the terms of sling loads. Um, uh, it's really just a school where you learn how to you learn nomenclatures and characteristics of helicopters, aircraft, and you dive way deeper into sling loads than you did in air assault school. And then you get into landing zones, helicopter landing zones, and drop zones, and knowing how to set up those and coordinate those. Um, so, and a lot of it was like as far as HLZs and DZs go, it was a lot of math, a lot of formulas, trigonometry, calculus, um, a lot of memorization. The school itself was like you feel so over. There's no physical part about it. You're not getting smoked. It's a very gentleman like course. Aside from the fact that you're getting mentally smoked every day, every single like the day zero when you get there, you take a test. So I I told my buddy I went with a lieutenant. He's a good friend of mine. He's a captain now, but went with the lieutenant, and I told him a week before we left because I was so busy. I was a career counselor at this point. I had the badge and everything, so I was like, "Hey, like, I don't think I'm going. Like, like I do not. I have not studied like a single bit." He says, "Look, you're gonna drive." Because it was a walk on. We convinced our battalion commander. I was like, hey, let us go. Like the worst they can do. It was in California. I was like, the worst they can do is send us home, and we'll just drive right back. And so she was like, go ahead, yeah, you guys can go ahead and do it. And so
Nice.
so he told me, he's like, the worst you can do is fail. On the drive up, we'll study every little thing you need to study for that first test, and it's a 6 hour drive. And so, I'm driving, and he grilled me through every little thing. He was really just telling me like this is the pattern to memorize. Like it'd be like 3, 2, 5, 6, 8, 10, and it was just patterns and within the the numbers and stuff we had to crunch and memorize. He would just the whole drive up. And by the start of the drive to the end of the drive, I knew every bit of that first test basically.
That's awesome.
And
That's
so
good for him.
so I appreciate him for that. And we got there, we passed the first test. The sling loads, the the differences between air assault and Pathfinder school is air assault, you just have to identify a deficiency within a sling. And then for those who don't know, a sling load is cargo that you attach to a helicopter, and how that gets inspected, and deficiencies within those sling loads. And in air assault school, you would just have to point at it, and I did air assault. It was pretty easy. You would just point at the deficiency and say deficiency, and that's it. And if you identify the three, then you move on from sling loads. But at
But you
Pathfinder
didn't have to
school,
correct anything.
no, you didn't have to correct anything. In Pathfinder school, you don't have to correct anything either. But when you identify these deficiencies, you have to fill out a deficiency sheet, and it has to be filled out properly and is verbatim. So it would say something like aircraft cargo exceeds max weight capability for aircraft, hook, verbatim, word for word. Can't make a mistake. No spelling mistakes. No verbiage. No words flipped around. And so and there was like hundreds. I mean, hundreds of different variations of what that could say, that those sentences could say on the sheet. And you would have 3 minutes to inspect the entire sling load, identify the deficiencies, and then fill out the sheet on per sling load. And so it was a little rough. And then HLZs and DZs, the helicopter landing zones and drop zones, when you're memorizing these formulas, you'd have to study all day and all night, and memorize these formulas and regurgitate like charts from your brain to a blank piece of paper on test day. And the only way I got through the course, and mind you, I was struggling with the ADHD and things like that. So the way I saw myself passing is if I was the last person to go to sleep. So we would study all night, and I would just watch people go to bed, go to bed, go to bed. And we're all next to our bed. It's a bay. So we're all have desks next to our bed. So we're just lined up in a perfect, two formations of beds and desks. And there would always be like me and somebody else looking at each other like, hey, dude, go to bed. Like once you go to bed, I'll go to bed. That's
Jeez.
how I thought I was going to pass. I was like, if I'm studying longer than everyone else, I'm going to be better off than everyone else. So
Wow, dude. I had no idea it was that intense. How
it was,
long is how
it
long is
was
the
only
school?
21 days. It wasn't long at all. My
You
and
got
my huh?
you got to do all that in 3 weeks.
hmm Yeah, it was a lot. It was a giant book of information that they cram down into a tiny book and give it to you when you graduate. They say, "Hey, this is your Pathfinder special."
Why couldn't I just use that the whole
Yeah,
time?
yeah, exactly.
Well,
Unfortunately, my buddy did not pass, but I did, and that was the ironic part about it because I didn't want to go.
the lieutenant didn't pass.
No,
Oh shit, dude.
yeah,
All right, so check it out, man. You got to give yourself props. I mean, ADHD be damned, everything else be damned. I mean, you made it through.
yeah,
Yeah. It was hard. You probably had to put a little bit more work in than maybe guy left to right of you, but
Mm.
you fucking did it. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Something to be proud of for sure. I
Oh,
think. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the most challenging school that I ever went to in the military. We didn't have a whole lot of schools as tankers that we could really go to. Um, there towards the end, they were starting to let some tankers go to ranger school, but that was few and far between. You know,
Yeah.
infantry always had priority over us. Um, Air assault, maybe if you're in a cav unit, you might be able to get air assault. Airborne, no, you're not getting airborne unless there's
Mm.
nobody there for school and you got walk-ons. So we didn't have a whole lot of opportunities. The one that we had was tank master gunner school, and first time I went, I failed out. I didn't even make it past the first exam. And I went there cocky, thinking, man, I'm a
Yeah,
badass.
I'll get you out the
I'm
park.
I'm gonna walk right through this shit. And it was just like what you're saying, like the written exams, you had to get a 90 on them, and they were just a question, and it had to be a 2 sentence, 3 sentence, verbatim, right out of the book answer with no notes, and you had to memorize all that crap. And yeah, I didn't make it the first time, and I finally went back. Probably you're at 11 years, I think. I think I went back at about my 11-year mark, 10 or 11-year
Mhm.
mark, and I smoked at that time because I like no, I didn't go to Hooters, didn't go hang out with the guys at the Rocker. I didn't go do any of that shit this time. I just studied, and
Mm.
my whole they put us in hotels, so my whole hotel room was nothing but poster boards of fucking notes and shit. I looked like I was trying to solve a crime that was 30 years old. It was like just shit everywhere. I was just studying, studying, studying. And I smoked it the second time. But you got to go into it with that kind of attitude. Like if you really want it, you got to focus. Um, and it, like you said, it's a gentleman course. Nobody's smoking you. The PT was kind of like optional. If you wanted to show up and
Mhm.
do PT, you could. It was all academic and hands on, and it was fucking hard. Um, but yeah, so when I got finished with that, I was like, man, I felt like I had done something. And you should feel the same way. Pathfinder, Air Assault, career counselor, all of that stuff. I mean, those are great accomplishments, despite the fact that you struggle with focus, concentration. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
Did
I
you
appreciate
ever go back and do any schooling at all, college?
it. No, I actually just started though. Last week. So
Oh,
yeah,
you did.
yeah, I just started. Um,
Good.
I made the decision to go back, and mainly because I felt like none of that stuff, although it mattered, personally, it matters in the future. I don't think it mattered too much for me as an infantryman to
Right.
go to school, and I know that's a mindset that a lot of I'm sure platoon sergeants have went through and whatnot. That they've put their soldiers before their own needs, and then they get out and they're like, oh crap, like why didn't I go to school? And then I even regret it now that I'm 11 years and seeing how fast I could have had a degree and
Yeah.
you know
Don't regret it. You already did the college swap where they take all your military schools and turn it into college credits?
JST, yes.
Yeah.
I did
I
the JST and they gave me 36
Yeah.
credit hours, which is crazy, I thought. So it was
Yeah.
pretty nice. Yeah. And then now I just have 86 more to go for a bachelor's. Um
You can get
so
that next time. I
yeah.
ended up getting my bachelor's the last year and a half I was in the Army, but yeah, the college eval, hell, that knocked out almost half of them right there.
Mhm.
Like, I think 36, somewhere around there is what I got also. And dude, just take one class at a time, and
Yeah.
before you know it, you'll have it. And I
Yeah.
think, do they still put a lot of weight on that for, your next pay grade is sergeant first class?
So
Um,
they do in this MOS. And
yeah, I
and
bet.
and that's why I chose to start going back again. I felt like in infantry the weight wasn't there. You know, you got the schools, you got um I felt like the weight wasn't there for actual civilian education. But now that I'm here, that's exactly what they're looking for. Human resources, they want to see that.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to help you. I mean, even if you just, what I did was I just went ahead and knocked out the associates first, just so you have a completed degree. And then when they look at you for sergeant first class, they'll see, okay, he's got an associate's, check that block. Obviously, a bachelor's will help more, but yeah, education's important, especially yeah, definitely in that field because you're a lot more administrative at this point, you know, so you're more white collar. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. No,
So
so
tell me, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, no, no. Finish your thought.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, so damn, now I forgot. No, it's right. You go ahead.
Well, I wanted to steer you in a different direction. I wanted to talk about the Philippines and Indonesia.
Mhm.
What did you go there from JBLM or did you go there from what unit did you go there with?
With JBLM, yeah, with Able Company, over in 117, yeah. We I think when I got there, everyone was just getting back from deployment from Afghanistan. I
Yeah,
think, y-
we had.
and I think everything kind of slowed down from then on. I think it wasn't until 2016 that they started pushing us out to Pacific trips. And so, a funny story about the Philippines though is we did this brigade layout a couple weeks before we were supposed to leave, and every we laid out our stuff, we got it all checked, like ready to go, um, and they started issuing out tickets, plane tickets, and giving us or itineraries, not tickets,
Okay.
itineraries, and they said, did everyone get one? I didn't get one. And so, I raised my hand. I was like, I didn't get one. They're like, go see your S3, go to schools, and we'll figure it out, whatever. And so I went over there. They did some typing, and in those, back then when I was just a brand new specialist, I didn't know how to set up my own DTS, my defense travel system stuff, like and I probably could have done it myself. But the dude did it all, and he was like, "Hey, you're going to get an email with your itinerary and all that lottie dottie stuff." And I was like, "Okay." Um, and I don't even think I had access to my email, so I probably didn't see anything. But that weekend, you know, and they're like, "You're probably not leaving for about 3 weeks." But that weekend, I get to Sunday night, I unpack all my stuff because I wanted to like get it tighter. Back then, I wanted to like Ranger roll everything and make it really tight and nice, and stick it in my rucksack and make that tight and small, so it's compact. So I unpacked everything that night, Sunday night, and I was like, okay, tomorrow I want to get home from work. I'm gonna go ahead and fix it all up. And so I get to work, and I'm in PTs, and they're like, "Hey, dude, your flight leaves in 3 hours."
Shut up.
Yeah, no, that happened, and and my wife was in the army at the time too, so I'm blowing her phone up because it's PT hours, and she's at PT. I just got to PT, and they're like, "Go home, pack your stuff because you're getting on a bird."
Holy
I
shit.
was like, "Oh shit!" And so I'm blowing up my wife's phone. She doesn't answer till PT's over, so like an
Of
hour later,
course.
right?
Yeah.
And so I mean, at this point, I'm at home, like stuffing my stuff in. And her sister lived with us at the time, so my 1 year old at the time is watching all this unfold. She wasn't 1 yet, actually; she was just born. Um, but I'm packing everything up, and my wife finally gets there right when I'm about to head out the door, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm leaving. See you guys. See you guys in a few months." And so got back to the unit, hopped on a bus, and that night I was sitting in the Philippines, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you thought you had 4 weeks.
Yeah, a couple more weeks to just relaxing.
God, that's so typical of the army. I don't miss that shit.
But it's probably like it's those things, and and even 48 National Training Center rotations later, it's always the shit things that happen in the army that you remember the most.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it
The,
leaves
the,
a.
the character building exercises because
Mhm.
that'll build some character and it's going to teach, man. I don't think a lot of people understand how challenging it is to be a military spouse. You know, you think hubby's going to be home for the next 3 weeks and then he's going to the Philippines and then nope, everything changes. I'm out. Bye. I'll call you when I can.
That's where we were afraid about this stuff popping up in the Middle East the last couple of weeks. We're like, I wonder if this is gonna, you know,
Yeah.
force us
Especially,
out sooner.
yeah. So when, I mean, I know OPSEC, you can't say exactly what date your guys are leaving, but uh, roughly what time
It,
frame this year?
in the next 90 days.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
You guys are about to go.
or less.
How long's the deployment?
9 months. I'll be gone for 9 months. Yeah.
Okay. Iraq or Syria?
Iraq, but a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Unfortunately, like I said, career counselor.
Yeah.
Um,
You're gonna have to move around a lot and
yeah,
go talk.
yeah, in order to get to these formations, and I'm in one of the units that is really spread out, and so I'm going to be responsible for flying around and getting to all these locations and getting involved with these soldiers. So
But you will be traveling by Black Hawk helicopter
yeah,
and not driving.
no traveling, yeah, helicopter. Yeah,
Good. Do you know where you're gonna be? Where your
I'll be
beds?
solely in Iraq. Yeah.
But you don't know what Bob or what. I don't even know what's there anymore. It's been so long since I've even
Erbil. I just don't know the.
northern. Is
Yeah,
it
it's
northern?
northern. It's northern.
Okay,
Yeah.
Erbil. That's not bad. From what I understand, Erbil's
Mhm.
not bad. Okay, well, that's good. You're not going to be in Baghdad though.
No, no,
Good.
ain't too far from there. It looks like on a map though.
Yeah, Erbil's pretty far north.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So from what I understand, even like 2005, 2006, when the war was really fucking kicking off,
Yeah.
the guys up in Erbil and up north there, they were still walking around with fucking patrol caps on and no body armor or anything.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
it was like a totally different country up
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the
And I've
shit
seen
was.
pictures. It looks very urban.
Yeah, yeah, it is. But it's the nicer part
Hmm.
of Iraq. If there are nice parts, it's the nicer part. But
Yeah. I think they're more worried about those in Egypt and Syria right now.
yeah, well, hopefully the shit with Iran stays died down because I think that would be the biggest threat you guys would face is like their proxies or
Mhm.
Iranians themselves. Those ballistic missiles are no fucking joke, man. Make sure you got that route planned out to your bunker, man, so you can
Mhm.
get there if you need to. That's hmm.
Yeah, there's I don't know, even the situation itself has started to heat up tensions within the country as well. People you thought that were closer to you are really supporting Iran, and it's starting things are starting to unfold in country that might affect things out there. So we'll see.
I hope not, but yeah, it's we live in a very weird time.
Hmm.
There's no other way to put it. You know, I you were going home quite a bit when you're at Fort Irwin, so you're still getting into LA and you're still seeing the civilian sector and shit like that. I was talking the other day to somebody about how I felt like for 22 years while I was in the army, I was in a bubble. Like I was not really exposed to what civilians were doing. And when I got out and got cast right into that civilian sector,
Hmm.
I was like, you motherfuckers have lost your minds. I don't know what the hell's going on anymore. People are so divided. We were never like that.
Yeah. No,
You
no.
we were people look at me like I'm making up shit when I talk about the fact that like look at you, you came from just a little ways from Compton. Look at Looney coming from St. Louis. Look at Hussey, he's about as country boy as they come, you
Yeah.
know. And
Okay.
I'm just some dipshit from Columbus, Ohio. And we all come together and there's no drama. We hang
Right.
shit on each other, but there's no drama. We're like there for each other. And then you see out in the civilian sector, and these motherfuckers cannot get along to save
Yeah.
their own ass.
Everybody is divided.
Yeah, they are. And it's
Politically
like,
divided, culturally divided.
yeah, and
Yeah,
it
it's
makes
bad.
no sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I agree. That was always a big thing for me. Just staying in. I wanted to get out every contract.
yeah,
But the things that kept me in is not only the safety of my family and knowing how crazy the world is out there. Having them located on an installation where everything is generally close, accessible, parks are safer, schools are safer. They're safe from all that bullying and stuff that we grew up with, the drugs, you know what I mean? And so, but also, you know, the divide between each other. And I think I saw it when I had this big gathering at my house one time, and I just looked around, and I had like 50 people, 50 soldiers at my house and their wives, we're barbecuing and stuff. But hopefully I'm not using the wrong words, but we had a couple Muslim friends and a couple Mexicans, Hispanics and black, African American, um, and we're all just hanging out in unity. No one's at each other's throats. We're just being existing together, and it was amazing.
And
And
that's the military. That's the one aspect that I loved the most about it. I kind of think it has to do with the fact that we are all on the same mission. Um, you know, whether it's the platoon level and we want to be the best platoon, or if it's at a bigger unit level and we want to win this war, whatever the mission is, it's like we all are a part of it. So we have cohesion, we have unity, and all that bickering and all that background bullshit is irrelevant because we're all on the same mission. And I feel like that's the problem with America right now. You've got two giant tribes that each have their own mission and that are completely separate from the other one. You got one side that wants this, you got the other side that wants that. They completely are at odds with each other. And because people are tribal by nature, they pick a fucking team and they stick on that team and they don't want to hear anything from the other side. The other side's the enemy. And it's like, come on, man. We do have a mission. We do have one unified mission. We're America, and we should care about the people that are coming after us and building the country that we could possibly build for the people coming after us, and it's like people just lose sight
of the things that really matter. Yeah.
the things that really matter. 100%, man. It
Yeah.
drives me, but I don't know. In the communities I'm in today, and I highly encourage you to do this when you get out because I imagine you're going to be a career guy at this point. It basically everything you just said speaks to wanting to stay in the military because all those reasons are valid reasons. The safe schools, the safe neighborhoods, yes, it's unpredictable as far as deployments go, but your paycheck's never unpredictable. You're going to get paid on the 1st and the 15th, no matter what, right? You got health care for everybody in your family. All that's straight.
Yeah.
So why get out? Because you're taking a gamble if you get out. Because there's a lot of
I can't anymore. They changed the in-def rules. I'm in def already.
oh, good.
So they got me.
You're stuck. That's good. I am so glad that I stayed in for 22. I was just like you. Every single one of my contracts, I was within a week of walking out the door. I went through, what do they call it? TAP, Transition Assistance Program.
Full time.
I went through that thing 3 times. I cleared CIF, turned all my shit in. I was like, I'm getting out. And then they dangle fucking 25 grand in my face and be like, come on, you sure you don't want to stay in 4 more years? And I'd be like, okay. Just do it.
They dangled money in front of you.
Yeah, I was a little hoe, man. I'll take that money.
Yeah.
But
no, I didn't get much of that. That's cool though.
yeah.
That's what I like about the job is being able to offer that stuff to soldiers or find the loopholes where I can get people some money.
So how is your mission today? I mean, as far as, are you making mission, your retention mission?
Going back to what you said, they are separate earlier. I don't think the Army, at least even during the Biden administration, because I've been pretty much doing it since, the Army hasn't struggled too much with retention at all. Now, what we struggle with is what the recruiting mission does to the retention mission. What it makes us do, what it makes us have to. It makes us have to push more, push harder, give more. When recruiting doesn't come on top, but ever since I've done my mission, ever since I've been in the field, I've made my mission, and ever since I've been in the field, the Army's made its mission. The Army's done with their mission now, and it hurts too, and it hurts a lot of soldiers. Even
Already in July?
My mission specifically has been done for a couple months.
Good.
The Army's mission itself has been done for like a month or so. Yeah. So retention, recruiting is different. They're
Okay.
separate. But but what that does though, it could hurt too. Because I'm still producing. I'm overproducing. Every day at work or every couple of days, I'm getting somebody else, who wants to stay in and who wants to do more. Um, but if for every soldier we overproduce, the more restrictions the army starts throwing at us. So they just brought back the 90-day window. Soldiers who are within 90 days of their ETS, they have to make a decision or get out. If they hit that, if they're at 91 days, they can reenlist. But if they hit that 90, they're done. You
No
know,
shit.
yeah, they just brought that back, and it's apparently been years since it's been back. They're not
Yeah, that
allowing
was
they're not allowing anybody to extend right now. It's either you do 2 years minimum reenlistment or you get out. Like it's a lot of, and that's because we made our mission. The army's like, I don't care about anybody else. You guys had all this time to reenlist. We made our mission, and putting these restrictions down. You know,
wow. You
so I
you,
guess
you snooze, you lose.
right. So I got soldiers coming in every day, like, hey, I'm like, you're no longer eligible. We can submit it, and I'm the type of career counselor that's going to go. I don't, and there's other career counselors like that, but above and beyond for the soldier. The day before they brought back the restriction, the 90-day restriction, I put a note on my door and I said, hey, anybody who's going to be affected by this tomorrow, you have till 2200 to hit me up. 2200, our time, because that's midnight, HRC time.
Yeah.
So this policy goes into effect tomorrow. This is the list. I pushed out the list. I said, these soldiers, if they want to see me, they have till 2200 come at my door and call my number. I'll be in the office. But
Wow.
didn't get nobody. But the very next day, I got 2 people on the list. I was like, I'm like, all right, buddy. I tried.
So you can't even get them a waiver at that point.
We have ETPs, and I'm working that now. But those are like, case by case, very, someone's got to be dying. For
No
your
shit.
Well, because
Wow.
they put this policy down, and you're not the only soldier in the army that's now regretting their decision. So it's got to be a good case. You got to make a good justification to continue. So
Wow. Yeah, they're not messing around. They're really doing well with retention if they're telling you once you get inside of your 90 days, that's it, bro. You had your chance.
yeah,
That's
retention's been pretty good. And it's career counselors out there that I struggle. I struggle a lot. I have to put in a lot of time to be successful, but there's some really good career counselors out there, and it's due to them that we're doing well. So
well, arguably you are still fairly new to this. And I think just speaking for myself, whenever I was given a new job, because in the military, you're not going to do the same thing from duty station to duty station. You're going to learn new things to do wherever they need you. Maybe not so much you anymore, but what I'm trying to get at is after you've done this for a couple of years, this shit's going to probably be really easy for you. But
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. You develop these habits and rhythm. You get into a rhythm, and I've started doing that. Here, as soon as I got here, I started noticing like my office is so OCD and organized. Every time I finish something, I got to stamp it, and I have ways of mentally tracking everything and making sure that this was done and this is complete or this needs to be complete. And I got, specific files and folders for every little thing and where it's supposed to go. Like if it's in this little pile or this little file, then that needs to go to the sergeant major. If it's in this little file, that needs to go to brigade. If this little file is ready to file. So,
that's huge. Especially if you struggle with attention
mhm,
and concentration, being organized makes a fuck ton of difference. A huge difference.
it does. Yeah.
I had to do that. I had I created this fucking Excel spreadsheet to track you guys. And I had everything from your boot size to your underwear size. I had everything. So if anybody said, hey, Mendoza fucking he has no uniforms, what size is he? Or he needs this, what's his blood type? Whatever. I had, dude, this Excel spreadsheet, if I had screens side by side, it probably would have been 30 feet long to the right. I mean, it was just so much data. And every time I'd have a new soldier come in, I'd sit him down and be like, "What's your shoe size? What size underwear do you wear? Do you have a wife? Do you have insurance?" Blah. And I would just everything, man. And it saved my ass because whenever we were in a meeting and they'd ask platoon sergeants, a specific, how many guys do you have that have over a 270 PT score? I could go right now, 5.
Yeah.
How many guys do you have ready for Ranger School? 3 right now. How many, whatever. And I was always right fucking there, you know? So I was a drunk, but I, I did my job well.
You're functional alcoholic.
Yeah. In rehab, they said I was what'd they fucking call me? Oh, I can't even remember. Yeah, I think it was something like that, like a high function drunk, something like that. I was
Yeah,
like, oh,
too.
thanks. Appreciate that. That's crazy. So what was the, going back to the Philippines, what did you do there?
It was joint forces training. It was a lot of joint forces training. So we were just going out, doing uncombat related missions, with the Philippines, just training with each other, learning the capabilities, kind of like what the mission said of the SFAB. I feel like SFAB was big on replacing what normal soldiers were doing out there, advising and communicating and learning capabilities, each other's capabilities, and fine tuning what they were doing versus what we were doing, and what our systems are capable of versus what their systems are capable of, and you know giving each other the proper training, and making sure that we're doing things in an efficient manner. So that's kind of what we did at both locations. I feel like we did it more in the Philippines than we did in Indonesia. I don't know the politics behind what was going on over there, but we did a lot of sitting around and just talking to to each other. In
Really?
Indonesia, everything required a police escort. In the Philippines was a lot more laid back, but we
Yeah.
did train a lot. We trained a lot, and it was very hot. I do not
A
miss.
a lot of people don't know Indonesia is like has the largest Muslim
Oh
population
yeah,
on the
they
on the
told us
planet.
that when we got there, it was like 95% Muslim, and yeah, at the time ISIS was growing, and so yeah, they were like, hey, yeah, you need a police escort everywhere you go, and they said apparently it was very dangerous everywhere we went. And there was a lot of moving around, so it was interesting.
Yeah, those fanatics, man. Any opportunity they get to take out an American soldier, they're going to try to take it.
Mhm.
The Philippines was like that for a while at the beginning of the global war on terrorism, but after a lot of fighting down there, they kind of settled down. But yeah, huh? Yeah, I guess I missed all that because we had just redeployed from Afghanistan when you came to the
Right.
platoon, and I remember the mission was going to be Pacific Rim. That was the focus, and that's what Second Brigade 2ID was gonna take on, which made sense. I mean, we're right there on the West Coast, so why
Mhm.
wouldn't you focus on the Pacific instead of the Middle East? You know, but I don't know. I miss JBLM. That was an awesome duty station.
But the Philippine experience was by far my favorite. I mean, we were allowed to go out and go to the malls and really connect with the community. And I did a lot of rice planting in the fields, like rice paddy planting,
No shit.
with the civilians there. So I enjoyed that. I did that on my weekends. I got really close with the Filipino army. I mean, it was awkwardly close. And I say this because I was a specialist, and everybody was calling me Sergeant Mendoza, and they would have these banquets and dinners, and there was like first sergeants and master sergeants and commanders, captains and colonels who were like, "Oh, Sergeant Mendoza, come sit with us," and these lieutenant colonels and lieutenants and captains were pissed at me because they didn't want, they didn't want to sit with them. They wanted to sit with me, and I was, it's like the specialist. So I thought that was funny. Yeah, they would always be we'd be on lockdown sometimes for some reason, they just didn't want us being all crazy and going out. So
Yeah.
they'd be at the gate, like the little compound gate, and they'd be like, "Hey, can Sergeant Mendoza come out?"
Can he come out and play?
So the commander would be like, "Only Mendoza can go." Like, so it was funny. I felt
Do
like
you
I had
do you think it had anything to do with your Hispanic background? Because
Mendoza.
that's
Yeah.
the Philippines was a Spanish colony at one point, like
Oh, yeah.
Mexico was, and there's a lot of Hispanic background in the Philippines.
Mm. I've met some Mendozas out there. No, I would say no. I would say it had more to do with how involved I chose to be with the community, versus they were like sleeping in bed and
Um,
sticking to themselves and
you're authentic.
yeah, yeah,
They
and
can see that.
they saw that, yeah,
That's
and
good.
we weren't there for entirely too long, so those relationships you have to build them off the rip, and I did, so they liked that,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really cool. I mean, I think if you're deploying to foreign countries and you're not trying to kind of figure out how they do shit,
Mhm.
you're doing yourself a huge disservice, you
No,
know?
exactly, yeah.
Because when you're sitting there in the recruiter's chair or you're the recruiter's office and you want to join the military, you think, I want to see the world. But then 90% of the guys get over to these different parts of the world and they don't do anything. They don't want to go out. They don't want to see,
Right. Yeah.
like all my interpreters when I was in Iraq and Afghanistan, I got to know them really well. I had Iranian interpreters, I had Iraqis, I had, just guys that Afghans from, like, I can't remember what tribe they were from, but whatever. I get to know them. Some amazing, amazing people and amazing stories of, how they got where they are, and just some of the shit that some of these guys go through over in other countries. It really makes you appreciate what we have here. You know,
Yeah. And they
it's
appreciate it too, and then that's why they want to work with us so much.
yeah, yeah. I think if you go over there and drop that whole America's the baddest motherfuckers on the planet, if you drop that and just
Mhm.
be human and just be normal with them, they'll love it, man. They love it, and I like it too. It's like Korea, for instance. The first 6 months I was in Korea, I just went to where Americans went. And then the last 6 months, I got brave and I just started hopping on the train and just going all over the country and going into Seoul and just kind of walking around by myself as an American. And just, it was a totally different experience when I did it like that. And I went to where the Koreans went, not where the Americans went. I stayed away from those areas. And man, it was the last 6 months in Korea was fucking amazing. It was
Yeah.
awesome once I started doing that. So are you at the battalion level or are you at brigade level?
Battalion. I'm at the battalion level. Yeah.
So what does career progression look like now that you are a 79 Sierra career counselor?
Um, I wouldn't say the civilian education matters entirely. It's definitely possible to promote. And I think with some of the background and schools and NCVRs that I've had, it's possible to promote and get sergeant first class. But as far as progression goes, once you promote to sergeant first class, depending on where you're going and what you're doing, will decide what position you're in. Because I know if I go a CONUS next, and I'm a sergeant first class, I'm going to request to be at the battalion level. Like I won't even take a brigade level, and I do that because there's certain procedures and um, policies and different things that go in effect once you're in a CONUS level, or excuse me, a CONUS assignment that I am not accustomed to. I've never been a CONUS, right? I've never been stationed at CONUS, so there's like things like a DROS that I have no way of knowing what to do with that. So my experience level at a CONUS level isn't going to be there. And I would not take a position at a brigade level if I'm supposed to be checking people's, you know, uh, contracts and builds and work. If I don't know how to do it myself. And so I guess it just depends on where I'm at and what I'm doing. Because if I'm another CONUS station and I'm not a CONUS, I'm probably gonna end up taking like a BCT as a senior. We call them seniors, brigade seniors. Um, but if I, like I said, if I were to go to CONUS, I think that would put me in a different position. But once we do get the senior position, um, we no longer work. We do work with soldiers, the soldiers that come in, but we're definitely responsible for a few career counselors and ensuring that their stuff is QA QC'd properly, and every contract that's getting confirmed is as 100% accurate as possible. And it usually has to be 100%. I know in the schoolhouse, it was funny that they drilled that into our brains. There wasn't a single test I didn't get a 99.5 or point 0.4 or something like that. But in the course, when I got that 99, they called us failures.
Oh, wow.
They walked in and they said, "There's no excellence in this class. You guys are all failures." And then they'll stand you up and they'll be like, "Oh, this one person got 100. This person is good." And they'll send that one home, and then they'll grill us for like 10, 20 minutes and say, "You guys are shitty. You guys are going to fail." as career counselors. And I was like, "Dang, my mom would love me getting 99.5 is really good."
Hell yeah. That's a
um
great.
yeah, but no, not in that course. If you're not getting 100, and then in turn that puts us in a position now, looking back at it, they were just trying to grill on our brains that we can't make mistakes in this field. Like, it's those little things that if you're not 100%, that's the difference between someone getting paid out a bonus or take delayed, like a delayed bonus.
Yeah.
Literally one little mistake, and then
Yeah.
that pisses that soldier off. That ruins your credibility. Other soldiers are going to be like, "Hey, this guy didn't pay out his bonus until months later." Just talk, because you're one guy and everyone's going to be talking about you.
Yeah.
So,
Attention
um,
to
yeah, attention to detail. But once you hit that senior position or ops position, which you work under division, or the command career counselor at the post level, once you get put in one of those positions, senior or the ops, that's part of your progression.
Okay.
You work at the brigade level, and then you'll get ops, and then senior ops, and then at one point you'll become command career counselor. That command
Okay.
career counselor is at that division or post level. But the coolest part about the field, like I said, you become a command career counselor, which there's not many of them, right? There's more positions for a battalion sergeant major than there is a command career counselor, right?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking is that um, it was kind of like my field, my MOS for tankers. They were slowly but surely kind of, well, I'll give you numbers. When I came in 1996, there was 12,000 active duty tank crewmen in the
Mm-hmm.
Army. By the time I got out, that number was completely depleted. There was only maybe 1,000, 1,500 because they'd moved a lot of the tanks to the National Guard. Um, so the career progression stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of my buddies got out as sergeant first class because there was the the competition, the competitiveness to make master sergeant or let alone sergeant major was ridiculous.
Right.
You had to walk on fucking water to to make those pay grades.
Mm-hmm.
So I can imagine it would be pretty similar to you because it's kind of like one of those things where there's a lot of staff sergeants, but as you go up the chain, how many sergeant majors are there as career counselors? It's probably only a handful.
There's only a handful of sergeant majors, but I feel like it's like the only hump, and I say that because it is one of the only MOSs that really control the strengths, as far as staff sergeants go, and sergeant first classes go, and maybe master sergeants go. And I say that because they'll stop producing. They'll spend a year not producing any more career counselors just to buy time for these staff sergeants to promote,
Oh,
some
okay.
classes to get out, and then they
Okay.
do some more in.
That's
Um,
good. So
and
they're cultivating the career to where you guys can still have progression.
progression. But I think, yeah, that is the hump, though, is that command career counselor. If you can hit that, then obviously you've got a better retirement rate, all that stuff, pension, whatever. But also, I guess that our big guy, our top dog, right? Everyone's fighting for that in the Army. Everyone's fighting for that sergeant major of the Army position, right? And there's like hundreds of thousands of soldiers in one position. For us, we have our own big dog, our top dog. His name is the SAC. It's the SAC, right? It's a Senior Army Career Counselor, and he works at the Pentagon.
Okay.
And so we're only fighting for one position. Just 900 of us, right, are fighting for that position. And so that the odds of getting that's a little higher
Okay.
than a normal soldier would trying to get sergeant major of the Army. So
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
makes
it's a little better in that aspect. And we do have other positions that you can work in, like a sergeant major can work under the SAC as maybe the ops, the senior Army ops, and so we have other positions. We have HRC, um, people working at HRC as under the retention reclassification branch. We have them all over, tons of positions at HRC, instructor positions, and those are tailored only to career counselor instructors. Unlike, I'm sure, and I say that because the 19 series might have kilos and Charlies and what do you call it,
deltas.
deltas all working to get these instructor positions, right? But for us, it's just 79s, Sierras, like the instructors for that schoolhouse. So in some
That's not bad.
aspects, there's more positions for us to fight for and things that we can do than
Okay.
other MOSs, but that's our major is going to be hard. That is the hump.
So I think the probably the most challenging thing for you, because the the one thing that I've taken away from this, and I like to think that I had something to do with it. Like I molded you in some way to where you care about soldiers. I'm sure it wasn't me, but um, the you're going to move to a point where you're not going to have that pool of people that you're trying to take care of every day, and you're only going to be concerned with dotting I's and crossing T's on packets. You know, that's going to be the shitty part because that's I right before I took that platoon in Lewis, I was at brigade. I was the brigade master gunner, and I fucking hated it. I didn't have any soldiers. I was trying to get people to go out and train on their freaking vehicles was like trying to herd cats. Like nobody wanted to go to gunnery. Nobody wanted to go qualify. Nobody wanted to do any of that shit. And a lot of the command didn't think it was that important, you
Right.
know? They're like, oh, we're never going to use these systems in combat anyway. It's like, the fuck, how do you know? How do you know if you're going to use them or not? We got to go. We're required to go qualify every 9 months on these platforms. We need to go out there and do it. I hated it. Fucking hated it. And plus, it was all infantry guys. No offense to you, man. I know you used to be infantry, but they're like, dude, all I care about is my body and my M4. That's it. That's it. That's all I need to fight. Or you, a mortar system. You know, that's all I need to fight. Whatever. I don't need to go to gunnery. I don't give a shit about this striker qualifying. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I hated it. And as soon as I got back to the platoon, I fucking loved it. I was like, all right, I'm back around soldiers again. This is
Right.
this is great. Yeah. So that'll be a hurdle, man. Just prepare yourself.
Yeah.
When you're
Slowly working it. I
I,
know it's gonna
you
be a hurdle.
yeah, I mean, even at battalion level, you're already probably starting to see it, I mean, how many do you have anybody under you that you rate or counsel at this point?
um the only time I do is when I have a like a soon to be career counselor, and I had one in my last unit at Irwin, but now I don't know. So like somebody who I personally like attest to, get indoors, they get a packet approved, they usually move underneath that career counselor who endorsed them, right, or who set them up. So I had one in my last unit, but I don't have one now. So now I'm by myself now.
Okay. All right. Man,
But no, career counselors typically don't have like soldiers that directly responsible for. They just have a formation that they're responsible for speaking to. So
yeah. And I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, well, the good part about that is you're not getting phone calls at 2 a.m. on Saturday night to go pick up somebody from jail, like fucking
no,
Sergeant Lip.
no,
Yeah,
I'm just getting texts, random texts on weekends, and I'm just like, hey, I'll see you Monday, bro.
yeah,
Then,
yeah.
go
But
ahead.
I think it's awesome that you're like, like staying in your office till 10 o'clock and giving these guys a last chance to fucking come in and stay in. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Nobody's telling you you have to do that. You just do that. That's awesome. I think it's great. And I think as long as you keep that focus on the soldiers, you're going to be fine whether you have soldiers under you or not, because that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, that's what's most important to me. And that's another reason why I left the field in the first place, the infantry field, because I wanted purpose. I wanted more purpose. I wanted to be, um, responsible for people's livelihoods, and I wanted to make sure they had the ability to make the right decision and understand, because I felt like I didn't have that. Like maybe you didn't either. I didn't have a career counselor lay down every single option they had, that I had.
No.
I didn't know there was money for me if I reclassed. Like I would have reclassed to surgical tech, or respiratory specialist, and got me $40,000, $50,000. But no one ever gave me that option, and I give those people that option every day. And
Yeah.
it's nice. It's nice that I can lay it out for them, and fight for them, and give them. It's about making their dreams happen too. Getting them the assignments they want, being that middleman, fighting with HRC to make sure they get the Italies and the Japans and the Germanys, all the cool assignments they want. So stuff that I couldn't get. So
That's absolutely awesome, dude. You're doing great things, man. I I wonder how many of that platoon, the E4 and below crop, are still are still doing this.
right, yeah,
I
I wanted that
I
too. I know. Well, I don't know who all was there when you were there. Pena and Hoskins. I don't know if you knew them, and
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, but
Just
no.
barely. I think they came in right as I was getting ready.
We had
Who
Schultz and Martin. Martin was the tanker.
yeah, he was my driver.
Mm-hmm. Schultz,
I've
Martin,
I've talked to
Jeffries.
my Jeffries. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. He was good. He was Schultz's kind of like right-hand guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? The
Mm-hmm.
sniper team was awesome. Like I'm telling you, that platoon had more fucking firepower than, I've had tank platoons before that couldn't lay down as much hate as what we could. Three mobile gun systems is what we were opconned. We only ever had one. You guys with 220 millimeter mortar tracks. I had the sniper team
We had the '60s too.
in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And my God, oh, I know what I wanted to talk to you about. Do you remember the Chinese spies we had in our platoon?
Chinese spies? I know who you're talking about. You're talking about
I
Liao
Well, Zhang
and Zhang.
and
Yeah.
Zhang and Lee.
Liao,
Yeah, Liao.
the doctor.
Yeah, I'm convinced that motherfucker was a spy. I am convinced. I love him to death. Don't get me wrong, man. Don't get me wrong. He was incredible. Did you go to NTC with us?
Um, no, maybe. No,
It
no.
was.
I don't think I
Yeah,
did. Because
you
I went.
must have come.
I had Sergeant Douglas in the platoon before, when I first went to NTC, and you were gone.
Okay.
You were long gone.
Okay. Well, so we go to. Well, first off, let me tell you about Liao. This motherfucker. He's an E4 in the army. Oh, what happened? What happened?
Damn. Oh no.
What's wrong?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think my podcast, my little podcaster thing just turned off, so I lost all.
You're still recording on this end.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
guess
said
I'm good.
I got a heads up it says Benjamin Mendoza's recording will continue on a new track. Started a new recording for. Okay. Was that on my end or your end?
I never started a recording, so it had to have been in your end.
Okay.
But no, my system turned off, and the battery should be good. I just think. it timed out because we've been on for an hour and a half. I don't know. But
Yeah,
we're good.
I'm going to wrap it here shortly anyway. I got to get moving with the rest of the day. Um, but yeah, I wanted to talk about Liao real quick because
Mm-hmm.
I know this dude was a spy. I know he was. He had no fucking bed. Even the commander thought he was. Um, so we go and we're doing room inspections in the barracks, and we go into his room, and it's fucking immaculate. It is crystal clean. Dude's got a shortwave radio. He's got scuba gear. He's got all this shit, and it's like, dude, are you SF? And he's like, no, I'm a mortar. I'm like, nah, bullshit, man. What do you do before you came and joined the U.S. Army? Because you're just way too squared away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had a lot of squared away soldiers, but this dude was top fucking notch. He was squared away. And in NTC, we get in this, we get in a fight, and it's danger close. These dudes are all over us, and the mortars can't get set up. And I'm trying to do some suppressive fire and shit. And I look over at the mortar track, and I see Liao dismount a 240 Bravo, do 3 to 5 second fucking rushes with that thing, run up and fucking just dive into a perfect machine gun position, rocks, cactus. You know how that terrain is just
Yeah.
fucked up. And he's just diving on the rocks and shit. And he's up there and just unloading on that 240. And I'm like, dude, that guy moves like a tier 1 operator. He doesn't move like a private. Just
Right.
training. He moves like a guy that's been doing this shit for a minute. And I was like, I looked at my gunner. I'm like, do you see that? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, that motherfucker, he's like Jason Bourne. He's got way too many skills to be a basically trained soldier.
And he was tiny, so
Whatever happened to him?
no, I don't know. We did talk a lot. I liked the dude.
Guy.
Yeah, no, I remember him getting his EIB. I remember him grading and becoming a E5. But after that, I think I might have left before him.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Zhang, they took Zhang out when they disbanded the tanker platoon
Mm.
from Able Company because they had separated us.
Yeah, I know they were talking about moving all the mobile gun systems to 8-1
So
Cav.
exactly, and they ended up doing that. Yeah,
So what happened to the tankers?
they went with them. So they
Oh, they
moved. Yeah, so yeah, it was kind of like a goodbye to Martin and Zhang, and I think they sent Jeffries, and I don't know what happened to Schultz, but I remember them sending Jeffries to the platoons, like, and
oh,
then
Schultz was 11 Bravo. He was infantry.
yeah, he went Ranger too, didn't he?
Yeah, that guy was a stud.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if he got out because he was one of those ones that if he wanted to make sergeant major, he could.
You
He
know,
was.
and he passed Ranger. Yes, I think he did.
When I had him, he was in the process of trying to get to Ranger school.
Mm.
I was constantly trying to send him up. He went to what was that? It's not. Is it RIP where they go and they do the? It's localized. They do it right there on JBLM, and they come
Oh, I
up with
think they did like a Bursa and Dursa. I think that's what they called it.
yeah, yeah, just to see where you're at in priority list to go
Right.
to Ranger
Mm-hmm.
school. And he would smoke that every time, and it could be like a Tuesday morning, and they'd be like, "You got Schultz?" And I'm like, "Of course I got Schultz." And they're like, "Well, he needs to be over to do this Ranger candidate thing, this PT test." I'm like, "He's done it 5 times."
Right.
But all
Yeah.
right. And I'll go talk to him like, Schultz, man, they want you to do this shit again. You don't have to. And he's like, no, I'll do it. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter what day of the week it was. No preparation whatsoever.
He was gonna do it.
Yeah, he was a fucking stud.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
I always wanted that. You know, wanted to do. I did Bursa, and I may have done Dursa too, and I think I scored generally high, and I even think I was close to getting a date once they talked about it, and I chose not to go. And it's always been because I don't know how to swim. It's always
Uh,
that's always been the reason for me that you know, I didn't go to ranger school, but even now I still want to go. You know, I tried to learn how to swim so I can do the GAFB.
good. Yeah, do it.
But it's so tough. I don't know. I feel like my parents should have threw me in the water when I was 12 or when I was 4. So
Yeah. I tell you, regrets they are what they are.
hmm
I think if I was to do it all over again, I think I probably would have come in as infantry. I love tanking. Don't get me wrong; it was a great career to have, but just the amount of schools that are available for infantry guys,
Hmm.
the options to go SF, um, just there's just so many different things you can do as an infantry guy, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. I think a lot of people think that you just come in, you're a ground pounder, and that's it. But there's so many different routes. You can go airborne, air assault. You could be mechanized. You could be just a straight leg. You know, ranger, pathfinder, air, all
Hmm.
of that stuff. That's all the bread and butter for the infantry guys. And I think I'm gonna I think I thought because you guys were the first infantry guys that I worked with directly because
Okay.
I'd only ever been in tank units until I was in 117 infantry. And I think, how sometimes you get a prejudice or an idea in your head and you think that, these 11 Bravos or 11 Charlies, they're not going to be as solid as my tank guys are. Like
Right.
tankers are just the shit.
Yeah,
And then
it's a
I
pride. It's a
realized,
pride thing. Yeah.
yeah, and I got down there and I'm like, oh shit, wait, no, 11 Bravos, 11 Charlies, they're all over it. These guys are like the real freaking deal. And I loved it. I loved working with you guys. You guys were amazing. And I was always so impressed that even when we didn't really have anything going on, you guys were pulling the freaking equipment out of the arms room and you're out there fucking practicing laying in mortars all the fucking time.
Hmm.
You guys were pros. It was awesome. It was not like that when I first got to that unit. I'm not going to say his name, but I had a staff sergeant. He was uh, my mortar team leader. He was fucking garbage. He was awful. And I had to put E4s in charge because this guy was so bad. And I finally got rid of him and got Hussey. And when I got Hussey, the mortars became a fire and forget team of mine. I didn't have to worry about you guys ever again. Hussey just took care of it. And you guys too. Again, it's kind of like how I started this. It's like I didn't really get a chance to get to know you and a lot of the other young 11 Charlies at that point because I didn't feel like I needed to really get involved in Hussey's business because
Hmm.
he had it going on. And but I regret it, I regret. Were you there when we were still going out and playing football like Thursday afternoons and shit out there in the quad?
Maybe, maybe once, and then they stopped. I think they stopped all the sport shit, and then they just started.
Yeah.
PTs on a daily basis. I remember us running like a mile to this little edge of a field and doing prep drill before we did anything. And then it was always some crazy, crazy workout the Sergeant Rao came up with
Yes.
that required us to do like 1,000 different exercises and
Yes. That was when
that.
he was in his CrossFit phase and
Yeah, it was all CrossFit bullshit.
he would fuck us up. But
Yeah,
but I always put him in charge of PT because I knew we were going to get solid
a
PT
good
out of him.
workout in, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's part of one of the things I miss the most about the infantry world is that forced PT because we don't get that much anymore. So
Yeah. And I didn't that was a hard adjustment for me because for one, right around that time frame, we're doing PT for an hour and a half every day instead of an hour. And
hmm.
when I first came in the army, bro, you're not even gonna you're gonna think I'm making this shit up. We only did PT Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 1 hour. That was
Oh
it.
wow.
But all we did was push ups, sit ups, and run. That's all we did
Hmm.
just to get ready for a PT test. That's it. And then getting out there to Lewis and getting around infantry guys, and it does make sense. Infantry guys, their weapon is their body. Their body has to be able to perform and it has to be physically fit all the fucking time. And the level of PT that we were doing out there, my God, I was not used to it. I was 40, 44 years old, drinking
Hmm.
like there's no tomorrow. And that shit used to kick my ass big time.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, it was rough. But you got to fake it. I'm 44, but you 18-year-olds are just like, but we still got a lot of gas left in the tank,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
I'm like, I don't.
Oh, I feel a lot different now.
You're still young as shit, man. I don't even want to hear it.
Oh, I don't believe it anymore.
Yeah. So how's wife, the kids? How's family?
They're good. Wife's she's got her associate. She's working on getting a new occupation out here. She was doing military contracting at the NTC, but the contracting company that she did there was focused. It was the job itself was analyzing all the training that we were doing out there.
Okay.
So keeping track of possible UXO, keeping track of like tracking systems, the laser tag, basically the laser tag systems.
Yep.
That was what she did out there. There was a lot of good money to be made as a contractor over there. But now that we're here at this new duty station, she's trying to get a new job out here. The kids are my oldest is 9, and she's started school. She'll be a fourth grader this coming school year.
Awesome.
And then I have a 4-year-old, and she's
2 girls.
yeah, 2 girls. Yeah, yeah. My 4-year-old's going to start preschool pretty soon, so it's
Awesome.
pretty nice. They're both on summer break.
You live
And
on- Did you buy a house? Do you live on post? What are you doing?
no, I live on base. Yeah, I'm waiting for the house stuff. I think one, the market seems a little, you know, um
Yeah.
wishy-washy. It's kind of left and right. It keeps going up and down.
Sure.
I'm just gonna wait, give it some time before I start looking into a house. I prefer on base living anyway right now, especially with the leaving on deployment and having to leave the kids behind. We live
Yeah.
a mile from my eldest school. We live a mile from the hospital, a mile from the commissary and the PX. So everything's pretty solely located for them, for to
Agree.
take care of themselves before I come back. So
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you're smart to wait on the house. That VA loan is you're gonna have that, for the rest of your life. Now is not a good time. I'm glad you brought that up because I'm gonna throw some nuggets out at you.
hmm
Some things that I wish. Now I bought a house in Colorado Springs, and I made money off of it when I sold it, and I
hmm
was I was only in that house for 18 months, and I think I made 12 grand off that sale, and because of that, I started buying houses every time I was stationed somewhere else, and I ended up buying 5 houses over the course of my career. Only the very first house did I make money on. Every other house, I'm investing in a fence or I'm putting in new flooring or I'm putting money into these houses, and then I'd sell them when I left, and I wouldn't make a dime. Sometimes I'd write a check at closing, to get out of the house. And then I had my last one that I bought while I was in the army. I bought in Fort Bliss, El Paso, Texas, and I had that fucker for 6 years, and I had people renting it out. I only actually lived in that house for 5 months, and it was a beautiful house in El Paso.
hmm
But I had renters in it for 6, 7 years, and finally sold it. And I had to write a check at closing for that one, and it was a nightmare. There was months where my renters, your renter moves out, and then you don't have a renter for a month or two,
hmm
and I'm paying the mortgage. And it's like, that was a pain in the ass. And I know some guys have had a lot of success buying houses and keeping them and renting them out as they go from one duty station to another. I got one buddy he had 4 houses all over the country. And he had the brain power to just deal with that and not get stressed about it at all. But for me, it was too much. It was like, I don't want this shit anymore. And so I
Yeah, it's
Lewis,
overwhelming. hmm
it is. It's a lot, and you don't need that stress. Um, and the interest rates are way too high right now anyway.
hmm
So that's one thing I would definitely encourage you to keep living on base until you are like at your final duty station and
Exactly.
you're going to get
Yeah.
out. The other thing I would encourage you to do, you've got at least 9 years left in the army. But at some point, maybe about 4 years from now, start really looking at what you want to do when you get out.
Hmm.
Because I, as ready as you think you're going to be, I thought I was. And I took a job at a casino as a security supervisor, worked there for a while. Um, it was okay, but, and it paid well, but it really, I think when I got out of the army, I think I needed to get the fuck away from that whole security lifestyle. I needed to get away from that and just, and do something completely different. And I still don't really know what that is. You know, I'm thinking about teaching at the college level. Um, I might do that. I don't know, but maybe just as a part time gig, not a full time thing. But my point, though, my larger point is start coming up with an idea. You know, what
Right.
you, and you can, one thing you're always going to be able to do is contracting, government contracting. You can always get into that. And then, you know, your wife did it at National Training Center. My wife, she's my ex-wife now, but my wife, when I was at Colorado Springs, she worked for a contractor and she was making bank. She was
Hmm.
she was making more than I was making, and we were doing really really well in Colorado Springs. So I think after your wife settles in and she's going to be able to find something probably as good as what you had at Fort Irwin, if not better, if not
Right.
a lot better. Um, Colorado Springs is still a boom town. It's, I mean, I don't know. I haven't been there in 20 years. Is it still, is it kind of run down now? Is it nice or what is it?
I haven't done a whole lot of exploring, to be honest. I've been trying to visit a couple bars so I can try to find some gigs for the DJing.
Yeah.
But I haven't gotten out a whole lot. I have family here. I think it's taken a lot of time. So I talked about my dad's side being in LA and Long Beach, and everyone's got houses in the same little area. But my mom has two brothers, and they're both here in
Oh,
Colorado.
wow.
One's
Okay.
in the Springs, and one's closer to Parker, Aurora area. So I spend a lot of time, any free time I got, if I'm not like just hanging out with the family or practicing my DJing, I'm literally going to my uncle's houses and hanging out and getting the kids out of the house and vibing out a little bit. So I haven't done a whole lot of exploring other than visiting a couple bars to see if I can get a gig or two. Get
I want
something going.
I want to come back to that because I want to talk about DJ.
Hmm.
Uh, go up Pikes Peak if you haven't gone up Pikes Peak yet. Fucking, that's worth it.
I went up the incline, the Mountain Two, so I've done
Okay.
that, but I've not done Pikes Peak.
Well, I'm talking driving anyhow, not walking.
Oh, no, I walked up the incline. It was
Drive
terrible.
to the top. Yeah, that incline sucks.
Yeah,
Oh, it's awful. Um, drive up that, and then, dude, trust me when I tell you, go to Cripple Creek up in the
I've
mountains.
heard. I was close to there.
Yeah,
I went with a friend to that area. But
gorgeous.
it's a very nice area. It's a lot of, yeah, twists and turns in the mountains, lots of service, and wondering
Yes.
if you're going to get back. But it's pretty nice out there. I think there was a couple old fashioned towns in that area.
Yeah, Cripple Creek's like an old mining town.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So I was there, and there was another town that was called something else in the same area. Um, and now it's bugging me. But yeah, we drove to Cripple Creek and we looked around there. Let me see if I can see this.
that whole area is just.
Victor.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah, that's
so
cool too.
yeah, no, that area is beautiful though. Yeah, me and a friend went hiking there, so it was a good time.
Awesome.
So I've done a
Yeah,
little bit of exploring, I guess. Just a little bit, just a
you
little bit.
have to when you're that close. You're right up against the Rocky Mountains, man.
Hmm.
You got to get in there.
Cheyenne Mountain Zoo is really beautiful. We went there a couple times. We got passes, so me and the family have been going there. So
That's cool. Garden of the Gods is awesome.
haven't done that yet, but I heard it's beautiful. Yeah.
It's incredible. That place is just, the terrain is just insane. And of course Manitou Springs is,
Hmm.
I love that area.
I like old fashioned looking towns, so I enjoy
Yeah,
that too.
I was raised by hippies, so then that's such a hippie damn town. I feel at home there. You can smell that
Yeah.
incense and the weed, and it's just like, yeah. Uh, all right, so talk to me about DJing, man. How long you been doing that?
Probably the longest hobby I've had. So it's been like at least 2 years now, consistently.
Good.
It's It's been nice. I picked it up from a friend. I've always been interested in the hobby, and but I never had somebody I was close to, that I could learn it from. He was a soldier, or he is a soldier. At my last duty station at Irwin NTC, picked it up from him, started learning. And when I learn something or I'm interested in something, I kind of dive deep.
Yeah, me too.
I just jump right into it. I start buying all sorts of shit, and I throw down all my money down on it. And
Yeah, me
so
too.
yeah, like the podcasting, I did that too. So I got this few pieces of equipment I still have from my previous endeavor.
Yeah,
Um, but I consider a lot of people would consider me professional, but I very well consider myself a more intermediate DJ. I've done some weddings and balls and um, parties and events, and
good, dude.
people like
That's
to people like to think I'm professional, but I still think there's a lot to learn, a lot more practice I need to get
there
at.
always
So
is.
yeah.
Yeah, stay humble with it. Stay
Hmm.
humble with it. You'll continue to prosper. That's awesome. I'm glad you're doing that. It's so important. See, now that's something too. Like I was talking about, kind of focusing on what are you going to do after the army. I mean, that's something that you could be. I'm sure you're already. If they're already calling you professional, you're already good at it. That could be a full time gig. You'll have a
Yeah.
pension. You'll have a
Yeah.
pension, so you're not, and you'll have health care,
Hmm.
part of your retirement package. So you're not going to have to. That's the cool thing about being retired from the army. I don't have to work for benefits today. I can take whatever job I want, and I can do it at a part time level because I don't need your benefits packet.
Right.
I've got
Yeah.
I've got a better one. Um, and dude, that's freeing. It really is. It allows you to kind of navigate where you want to work.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's pretty much what I've been doing. Just trying to find a niche and seeing if it could take me somewhere after the army. So the podcasting was nice, but I
Yeah.
don't think it was me. I don't think I enjoyed talking. I enjoyed having fun with it, but the DJing so far has been pretty successful for me. So
Well, good, man. If that, we make a huge sacrifice when we choose to make the military our career. We sacrifice a lot of time with our families. Um, that's the biggest sacrifice, in my opinion. But you're going to get that time back. You're going to get that time back at the other end of this.
hmm.
And I encourage you to do what you love at that point, not what you have to do. You know
Exactly.
what
Yeah.
And then one other thing I would kind of point out to you, which I was incredibly lucky because the last duty station I was at was Fort Dix, New Jersey, and I was only with it was like an ACRC job. We were going out to National Guard units and
Mm-hmm.
evaluating their training and stuff like that. Um, but we had a ton of downtime, and I was able to finish my bachelor's while I was there. And I was also, most importantly, I was around a bunch of guys that were about to retire, and they coached me through the process of retiring. And one of the things that I was able to do was I was able to get in with a veteran service organization. In this case, the one I went through was AMVETS, and they started my disability claim while I was still in the army. So the day I got out,
You'd already had it.
I had disability. And so basically, what I would tell you at this point, I'm sure you already do it, but you know how, especially in the 11 series in the infantry world, when we get hurt, a lot of times they don't want to hear that you want to go to the aid station. They don't want to
Hmm.
hear that you want to go to the doctor. They want you to suck it the fuck up and get back out there and do PT. Your ankle's going to be fine, you little baby. Whatever. Don't listen to that shit.
Hmm.
Go get anytime you have the slightest thing going wrong, get checked out, evaluated. It'll go into your permanent medical record. And that is the difference between a disability claim and not getting a disability claim.
I think I've done that for the most part of my career, but I've always stayed off the profile. I don't know how I've been able to do that. Like I have herniated discs, but no profile. I have a fractured knee, but no profile. I have a fractured shoulder, but no profile. And it's all been documented. I just wonder if having the profile or not is a big difference? Because I never
Well,
wanted the profile.
no, it doesn't make any difference because I had all those injuries also, and I never was on profile. I
Mhm.
wouldn't let them give me a profile, but I was always in a position too at that point where, like First Sergeant Staley, he was fucking amazing. He knew I was broke
Remember,
off.
stay.
Like
Yeah.
I was hurting bad, and he was about to retire, and he was going to start a CrossFit gym. And so he kind of just, I would just start doing PT with him, and I'd give you guys to Sergeant Rao, and be like,
Mhm.
"Have fun, guys! I'm doing PT with the first sergeant." And he would take me through and have me do exercises and workouts that weren't exacerbating what injuries I already had.
Mhm.
And I had a lot at Lewis. I was falling the fuck apart at Lewis. I was breaking left and right, and but I was still working out with him, and you know. And I think you could probably find that at battalion level and brigade level too. You find a sergeant major that understands, you know, this guy doesn't want to be on profile, but he's got to take it easy too. He's got to
Right.
heal. He's got to recover, you know? So no, profiles don't make any difference on that disability claim. Everything that you just listed right there is a percentage, you know, and the target is 50%. If you get to 50%, they'll cut you a check
Oh
uh,
well.
every month for the
Well,
rest of your
then
life.
you got the ADHD, everything else. So
Yeah.
hopefully,
Well, and you've already sought help for ADHD, and you've gone and you so there's no percentage for alcoholism, which makes no
mm-hmm.
sense because the military produces more alcoholics per capita than any other career field out there. But
And
there's
the
no percentage for that.
hearing, no percentage for hearing, huh? From orders.
No, you get that. You get 10%, but what that does for you is it gets you free hearing aids when you're 90. You know,
Oh well,
that's
yeah,
about all it does. Um, I mean, even right now as we speak, my ears are ringing. I
yeah, me
just got,
too. Me
yeah,
too.
I just, I got, I get used to it. I saw this meme the other day on 4th of July. It's like, you know, when you talk about freedom ringing, I can hear it. I don't even remember, but it's
Yeah,
like,
here 24 hours a day.
yeah, I hear freedom ringing 24 hours a day. Well, Benji, man, I'm glad you freaking met me on here, man.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the things you're doing for veterans, giving them a voice and pretty much letting them speak to each other, through this podcast. So
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I never honestly thought about doing guys that were still active duty. But this is awesome. This is great. And I tell you, if you're up for it, man, you know, 6 months down the road, I'd like to get you on here again, just kind of see where you're at. Or maybe actually when you
hmm
get back from Inherent Resolve and
hmm
you come back from Iraq, hit me up, man. And let's talk about what that tour was like. Cause I'm definitely interested in real world deployments
right,
and what you'll be
and
doing there.
comparing it from the past to now too is probably good too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. 100%. So if I don't talk to you between now and then, be safe, keep your head down, and Godspeed to you, man.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot,
It's
brother.
been, it's been a pleasure.
All right, man. Take it easy.
All right,
Bye bye.
bye.